And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off.
Go ahead and say it, Ed. Go Tigers!
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
You like that? You like that?
F it. Jamar's down there somewhere.
In the New Orleans Saints select Marcus Davenport.
No!
Splash Brothers. Yeah.
It's playoff. Keep going, Brace.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Welcome to Chasing the Trophy Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Derek Sanders, coming at you here for the Week 10 Waiver Wire positions and players and for the Dirty Boot Sports Network. And man, we are through 9 weeks, coming into Week 10 here. It's just kind of crazy. Seems like it's kind of flying by a little bit, and but lots to cover, lots to go over, so we're going to get right on into it. First, word of prayer. Lord, just thank you for everything you continue to bless us with, and just thank you for having mercy on us and just allowing us to enjoy things as well as serving your name, Lord. And just thank you for giving us this sport and this opportunity to talk about this sport. And we just I'm thankful for it, Lord. And just continue to let me lead, guide, and direct in your name, and just serve in your name, Lord. And just please be with Nora Case. She continues to undergo her immunizations and build that immunity and strength back up. And just thank you for the miracles that you've done in her and the Meredith family. We just are ever grateful, Lord. And just thank you for Crew Tidwell and everything you've done in his life and his family, Lord. And just thank you for those miracles that we've prayed for, that you've answered. We just thank you for those, and thank you for him, and be with him and his family as they go and continue to testify to you, Lord, that you were the one that made all this possible. And then be with Mama T and the Nord family, and also be with the Huff family and Mr. Huff and Jillian's dad. Just be with Jacob and Jillian and their boys, and as they're going through all sorts of different the family life events, Lord, that you put on us. Just be with them as they go through that. Help them turn to you, Lord. Just be with the victims and the relief workers of Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton. Just be with them, keep them safe, provide for them, help them turn to you in this time, Lord, as they're still in time of need and just looking for answers, Lord. Just give them answers and help them know that you have a plan for it, Lord. Just also be with Trent as he's traveling and should have arrived at his destination in Africa by now, Lord. And just be with him and his mission as he's there to serve in your name and bring people to you and educate people on you and just help people in your name, Lord. And just people that need the help tremendously. Just be with Trent and all the missionaries that are with him. Just thank you for sending them and the work that they do and putting that on their heart, Lord. And then also just be with my wife Kylie and the unborn baby, and baby Kobe, who we're just waiting for arrival any time now. So just be with them. Please be a safe delivery, and also be with Kylie and I as we raise this boy, and Cullen, as his influence on him will be great also. Let us be godly influences that lead him in the way that you deem, and in your name, Lord, just to serve you as we try to do every day and be a light for you. So, but Lord, just thank you for all these blessings. Just thank you for this game and this opportunity to talk about this game, Lord. And just please continue to show and let us be a light for you, and let us shine and show people your glory, Lord. It's in your name we pray. Amen. All right, guys. So jumping on in, Week 10 waiver wire. We've got some injury updates and some news. Several trades went down. Some impact for fantasy, some did not. But first, our title sponsor for this episode, Mimi's Children's Boutique, located in Jonesboro, that fulfills all clothing needs for your little ones. Owners Melissa Johnson and Megan Harrell offer children and baby boutique brand clothing and accessories, vinyl print t-shirts, and so much more. You can find them on Main Street in Jonesboro from 10 to 6 Tuesday through Friday and 10 to 2 on Saturday. Thank you, Mimi's. We appreciate y'all. Both of y'all. Y'all supported us since day one. We appreciate that. Y'all go out, support Mimi's. Hey, Christmas is right around the corner. Mimi's is a great place to get children's boutique items. I know we've got a little one on the way, and definitely somewhere that we're going to get some clothing for little Kobe, especially that sports gear, that Louisiana, that LSU, the Tech, the ULM, Saints gear. I know they have a lot of that there. So we appreciate them and supporting us. Also, I thank our other sponsors, Big Reed BBQ and Crown Detailing. Thank y'all for sponsoring us. We really appreciate it. But jumping right on into news and injuries, Saquon Barkley, a little banged up after his game, experienced some back tightness during the game, but continued to play. Apparently, they're saying it's nothing. So just continuing to monitor that. CeeDee Lamb ended up leaving his game, which it was a terrible game it was for the Cowboys, but he has injured his AC joint is what I've been told, and they're considering him week to week. That's big, man, because he already was not having the great season, and then when he's starting to come on as of late, and then now he's got this AC joint injury that he's going to be week to week. And then Dak Prescott, which I'm just going to talk about this while we're right here because I'll get to him in a little bit. But Dak Prescott left this game with a hamstring injury, and then he is going on the IR. So there you go. CeeDee Lamb's down for week to week. Dak Prescott's going on the IR with a hamstring injury, so that's at least the next 4 games. A.J. Brown goes down with a knee injury. He's considered day-to-day. All the tests came back clean. It's not probably going to be an extended absence, but he might have a chance to play this week. He left after the first half. And, I would imagine it might have something to do with Philadelphia having almost complete control of this game till the end of why they probably elected not to bring him back out on the field because they were playing Jacksonville. But A.J. Brown, keep an eye on that. But, yep, he left with that knee injury. Lamar Jackson didn't participate in practice Tuesday because of a knee injury, but that's because he's just taking a day off because they play Thursday night against the Bengals this week. Baltimore and Cincinnati do. So I wouldn't worry about Lamar Jackson. He'll be out there. Nico Collins, I did hear rumors that he should be able to come back for week 10. There's not been an update, but that was the last update we had on like October the 23rd that he had no setbacks and they should be back. And then I heard some analysts talking that they expect him back this week to practice. We'll see if there's any updates on that later on the week. Then we got Drake London, ended up leaving the game with a hip pointer injury, considered day-to-day. Honestly, from what they're saying, it's just a pain tolerance thing with him. No structural damage, nothing long-term or anything like that. But I'd just watch his reps. He has a chance to play because with the pain tolerance thing like that, they can do a lot of things with treatment and stuff like that to help. So I think London has a chance to play, but if not, it's really gonna boost Darnell Mooney's production as it did last week. So keep an eye on Drake London. Christian McCaffrey returns to practice, and barring any setbacks, they fully expect him to be back in the lineup for week 10. So good news there. So McCaffrey looking like he will be back. DK Metcalf ended up having a knee injury a couple weeks ago. They labeled him week to week, and then they come out and said, well, he had a chance to play. And then now it's an MCL sprain, and it said he's on bye this week, by the way, but they said he will return after their bye this week. So just a little update on DK, even though he didn't play this week, he is expected back after their bye this week. Deebo Samuel, they come out and said he has rib and oblique strains after he's still managing after his last game. And anyway, they come off the bye. He's supposedly going to be back because they were on bye last week. So he's been managing those rib and oblique strains. No real news update, but I would expect him back because they expected him back. Let's see. T. Higgins ended up getting ruled out last week, come down with a quad injury, and then pretty much hadn't practiced in about a week, and ended up getting ruled out because he injured it on the 25th at practice and didn't practice, pretty much hasn't practiced since then. And then they play Thursday night this week, and he hasn't practiced since. I would not expect T. Higgins to play Thursday night as much as we would like it, but I just don't think it's going to happen. Chris Olave got pretty much knocked out during the game. If you've seen it, it was pretty scary because he got hit. He went down like a limp noodle and pretty much just laid there for a hot minute. And then they stretchered him off. They were worried about him, some kind of neck injury or anything, but ended up it was okay. Last update was Sunday. He got discharged from the North Carolina hospital, returned to New Orleans with his teammates. They carted him off, but he's pretty much going to be in concussion protocol. And this is his second concussion for the season. So that's a pretty big one there. So it might take him a little bit longer than a week to clear concussion protocol. Not that you're wanting to start anybody on the Saints team right now. But on the brighter side, Dennis Allen did get fired, Saints head coach. So big news there. Absolutely thankful for that. I hate that he lost his job. But it was time. He's not bringing the franchise forward anymore. Hasn't been for the last couple of years. I loved him as a defensive coordinator. I still think he'll be a great defensive coordinator somewhere, but he's just not a head coach. And honestly, I really, if he's focusing solely on defense, we have seen what he can do with the Saints defense. And I mean, I hate to see him leave, but it's like, that's what I was worried about when they listed him as head coach. We lose this awesome defensive coordinator if it doesn't pan out for him being the coach, and it didn't. And now he's gone. And it's like, he's not going to stick around to be the DC while we find somebody to be the offensive coordinator or the offensive minded head coach. So he's gone, but I think he lands, becomes DC somewhere, and is very successful. But glad he's out of New Orleans now, because we did not need him as the head coach. We need to start looking for other options. Who knows who it's going to be, but fingers crossed it's going to be an offensive-minded head coach, because unfortunately that's just the way the game's going, and you gotta be able to adjust. So anyway, moving on. Yep. Brian Robinson Jr. ended up listed as inactive this past week, so he got ruled out on this past Sunday. Haven't got a new update since Sunday, since he got ruled out, so just keep an eye on his practice this week. In a surprise turn, Amari Cooper ended up getting ruled out with a wrist injury this past Sunday, which was crazy because I don't even think, Friday, he was listed as questionable. And he was limited pretty much all week, and then questionable Friday. Everybody, I guess, wasn't thinking much about it. But then he got ruled out with this wrist injury. Did not play this past weekend. There's really no expectation that they've listed right here. Hopefully he comes back this week. I just keep an eye on that, but that's Amari Cooper. No new updates on Pacheco. I know he's still got several weeks. I heard him talk about Jordan Mason should be back. But with CMC coming back, I don't think that's very relevant. Dallas Goedert ended up getting ruled out last week with that hamstring injury. He was, I thought he practiced some last week, but no, he did not practice at all last week either. So be looking for him to get some practice in before he returns. Like I said, Dak Prescott getting placed on IR with that. Actually, you know what? He has not been officially placed, but is likely. Jerry Jones said that he will miss an extended period of time, and they said likely to be placed on IR, but he has not been placed on IR as of this reporting of this podcast. But either way, he's going to be out for a hot minute. I'd be looking for somebody else. Maybe some of these guys we're going to talk about here in a little bit. Jameson Williams should be back. He's 2-game suspension for PEDs, or performance-enhancing substances, was lifted Monday, and he will go back to the team. and, be back in the lineup, which they will need him, which they've been doing well without him. The Detroit offense has been clicking, but anyway, either way, Jameson Williams will be back, so get him in your lineup if you got him. Keon Coleman is scheduled to undergo an MRI on his wrist, and he left the game with a wrist injury. Man, the Bills wide receivers are getting thin. Keon Coleman's out. Amari Cooper leaves. I mean, you got Khalil Shakir and Mac Hollins, and then you got the tight ends, which is great for all those guys, but man. Anyway, having an MRI, no update on that as right now, so just keep an eye to see if that impacts him any. This one is a little bit impactful there. Zach Moss gets placed on injury reserve with a neck injury. Has no his timetable is oh, okay. Nope. Never mind. There was an update yesterday. He is expected to miss at least the rest of the regular season due to this neck injury. Zach Moss. Man, that's huge. I didn't even hear that yesterday with all this election stuff. There's not been as much news prevalent just kind of getting through because everybody's talking about the election. But Zach Moss out for the rest of the regular season, which brings me into a little caveat. They signed Khalil Herbert, who will be talked about a little bit here in just a little bit. Finally, Khalil Herbert gets out of purgatory in Chicago, gets into Cincinnati with maybe some chance to see some carries. So definitely something to keep an eye on there. Jonathan Brooks ended up getting downgraded out, practiced a fair amount last week. Honestly, kind of expect him to practice some more this week. They have to activate him off of IR. So if you're in a league where it's just IR spots, they have to activate him because he's no longer eligible. 21-day window's up. So I really think they were just kind of letting Chuba Hubbard run it. And if he started not being successful, maybe they bring Brooks along a little bit faster. But with Hubbard being so successful, I feel like maybe that's why that Jonathan Brooks has just kind of been sitting back on the sidelines and rehabbing a little bit slower. But either way, keep an eye on him. He should be available in at least 40% of leagues, and might be somebody to pick up and stash just in case for the playoff push. Next would be Juwan Jennings. Definitely somebody to pick up and play. Has been banged up with that hip injury. Kyle Shanahan said he fully expected him back after the week 9 bye, which they're coming off of. He should be. If you consider Debo the wide receiver 1, then he'll be wide receiver 2. If you consider Debo's kind of more of a gadget player, like just an athlete, running back, wide receiver, which he is, then Juwan Jennings is technically the wide receiver 1 there in San Francisco with Brandon Ayuk going down. So something to keep an eye on there. Let's see. Anything else relevant that I can see? Not that I know of. Yeah, no, that's pretty much most of the relevant injury updates. Now, trade, let's see. I'm going to pull up some of the trades that happened over the last couple days. Let's see. I seen a graphic. I should have saved it. See, that's what happens, man. You see a graphic and you don't save it whenever you see it, and then you can't find it. Anyway, one of the main ones for Khalil Herbert. We're going to go ahead and get it into our waiver wire picks, and then there were several defensive trades, which was good for a lot of the defenses. Several of the ones that were kind of okay that had good offenses got better. Baltimore had a big. They traded for Tre'Davious White, I believe, and then let's see, who was it? Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh got a couple players. I know they bolstered their linebackers. Anyway, whenever I find that graphic, I'll go over it. But jumping on into the waiver wire quarterbacks, number one's got to be Sam Darnold. Once again, very efficient. There really ain't much else to say with Darnold other than the fact that he's on a good offense. He's limited mobility, and he's got great playmakers around him. This week, he goes up against Jacksonville, 31st ranked DST against quarterbacks, giving up a ton of points. He's pretty much averaged around 22 fantasy points a game in 6 point per quarterback leagues. But like I said, not a lot of rushing upside, but essentially he's almost CJ Stroud from last year. And even though people don't want to recognize him as that, but he's doing pretty much what CJ Stroud almost did last year. Not quite as big in yards numbers, but everything else is pretty similar. And he's throwing a little bit. He's got a few more turnovers than him last year, but I mean, for the most part, as far as efficiency ratings go, for completion percentage and touchdown totals, he's CJ Stroud from last year. But he's only he's over 60% now. But when I did this article, he was 46% owned. So anyway. Sam Darnold, number 1. He's a low-end QB1 rest of season, just limited by his rushing, but great team around him. His defense also picked up a couple players, I believe, to bolster that defense, which was already pretty good. Number 2 is going to be Aaron Rodgers. I mean, owned in around 52% of leagues. He's finally looks like he's getting his chemistry back with Adams and Wilson together. They're kind of getting this work order, flow going during the game. The last 2 weeks, he's been pretty effective. Now if D-lines continue to get plenty of pressure on him, how long that continues, I don't know, but he's got at least 21 points in the last 2 games, and then he's got at least 21 in 3 of the last 4. He's got 26 in his last one, went for 211, 3 touchdowns against Houston defense. Is pretty solid. Now he's got Arizona and Indianapolis the next 2 games, which are definitely soft matchups. So like Aaron Rodgers, number 2. Then he's got his bye. So, really you could stream him for the next couple games and dump him, pick up somebody else going through these bye weeks. But yeah, like Aaron Rodgers at number 2. Number 3 is going to be Tua. Owning 42% of fantasy leagues. He's back. Looked very efficient in his last game. I mean, it takes a little bit of time to get his legs up underneath him, but I mean, for the most part, he looked like Tua. 231 yards, 2 touchdowns, through completion percentage of 89%. What more do you want with all those playmakers, with Achane, with Hill, with Waddle, Johnny Smith, like Mostert, Jalen Wright, list goes on. They got athletes for days in Miami. Why would you not want the quarterback get him the ball? And they rely heavily Tua, as we've seen when he was out. He is the centerpiece of that offense as far as distribution and how it works. And so, he's definitely somebody to cling to. Could be somebody that could carry you down the stretch. Now, we've seen them falter toward the end of the second half of the season in the past in Miami, but hopefully that won't be the case. But I like 2 at 3 as another good quarterback to pick up and play, especially during bye weeks. Number 4 is going to be Stafford. Matthew Stafford owning like 18% of leagues. Stafford's throwing the ball great. I mean, he's like Rodgers and Tua. Not very mobile. Excellent playmakers around him, very efficient passers, great offensive minds running their offense. So, I mean, Stafford's just another one. The only reason that I've got the other guys a little bit ahead is because I think Stafford's defense is the worst of those, and I think that also limits time of possession. Now, it might create more shootouts, but also, if the offensive team holds the ball more, that creates less opportunity for your offense. And and they did trade away one of their secondary players in Los Angeles. So, because they had Tre'Davious White and they traded him away. So, I still think with Stafford, with Puka, with Cooper Kupp, with Kyron Williams, I think that there's and even Demarcus Robinson, as he's been scoring several touchdowns the last couple of weeks, I think he's going to be pretty hot toward the end of the second half of the season. And they're going to make a playoff push because nobody's really stepped up and claimed that division. So, like Stafford, then number 5 is going to be Jared Goff, owning 53% of leagues. I mean, he's doing the same thing he's done every year. Top, low-end QB1, just like Sam Darnold, too. Very similar to the 3 above, only he doesn't – you could argue that he doesn't quite have the playmakers that Tua, Stafford, and Rodgers do. And you're like, what? No, it's Detroit. But I mean, if you really think about it, everybody on Miami, the Rams, and the Jets, they have some outstanding stud playmakers. And now Goff's got Amon-Ra, and he's got Amon-Ra and Gibbs. And I mean, you could say Laporta, but where's he been? You say Jameson Williams, but he only shows up occasionally. And then you got David Montgomery. He's a thumper, but playmaker, eh, So he's got Amon-Ra and he's got Gibbs, and then the rest of those guys got like at least 3 playmakers on their team, and also, Goff and them seem very happy to just hammer the ball with the run game. I mean, so lack of passing volume for Goff. Now we've seen him be very efficient and effective with that lack of passing volume, but he's thrown for less than 30 times, a couple more times this year than I would like for somebody that I would like to rely on as my fantasy quarterback if they don't run. And that's the only reason why he's 5. But either way, he should be owned. He should be started in most good matchup weeks, if not all weeks. You could do worse if he wasn't your all-time starter on your team for sure. So that's my last one for the waiver wire pickup for this week. And then I have another little mini column here, stash quarterbacks for this week only. So these are guys that they're not probably going to be that great this week, or they're on a bye, but these are guys that need to be on your bench because they've got great matchups coming up, and they've been very productive this year so far. And that's Drake May. He's got a terrible matchup this week. Honestly, him and Bo Nix are like identical right now. Running the ball, throwing the ball, heavily involved, make their team better. May has a terrible defense on the other side, so there's that. But they both have great offensive coordinator, head coaches. But Nix has Peyton, so he's probably a little bit better. May's probably a little bit more of a more talented quarterback from what I've seen as far as passing and running. But either way, they're both serviceable. But this week, terrible matchups for it. Drake May, let's see, he has Chicago at Chicago, the worst, the number 1 defense against quarterbacks so far this year. And with him being a rookie, I mean, with him rushing ability, he could buoy his expectations a little bit, but man, I just wouldn't have high expectations for May. If I could sit him and keep him, I would. Then we got Bo Nix owned at 58%, and Drake May's only owned at 10% of leagues, but Bo Nix, 58%. Another poor matchup. He's going up against Kansas City this week, and we've just seen them really just suppress offenses all season. And now they don't completely eliminate them like some of these teams, like Chicago pretty much eliminates wide receivers and quarterbacks almost. But Kansas City suppresses them enough where you're probably looking for starters elsewhere. And so I'm looking to hopefully sit Bo Nix one more week, and then he's got a string of several solid games for the next several weeks after Kansas City. Let's see. He has Atlanta, Las Vegas, and Cleveland, all great matchups for quarterbacks. Then he has a bye. Then he has the Colts, Chargers, but then Cincinnati. So you're getting into your playoffs, and you got another couple good matchups there. Bo Nix is definitely somebody I'm looking at going down the stretch there for that. So, and then last but not least, Geno Smith. Geno's QB8 so far on fantasy so far this year. I mean, he's been a little up and down here lately, a couple bad games, a couple good games. Well, this last game against the Rams, 363, 3 touchdowns, had 3 interceptions, but 6 rushes for 16 yards. You love to see the 6 rushes. Put up 30 points in a 6-point for fantasy touchdown league coming out of his bye. San Francisco, Arizona, got the Jets, then Arizona, Green Bay, who's starting to kind of look like they're pulling it back as they traded to both the Smiths off their defense, Zaire, I think, or Jair Smith and Preston Smith. Yes, Jair Smith and Preston Smith. Green Bay traded both of those, so that defense might not be quite as good as it has been. Then he's got Minnesota, Chicago. You don't like those. Then ends it with the Rams. But San Francisco, Arizona, 3 of the next 4 coming off of Geno's bye are solid matchups. And then if Green Bay really starts to tank like it's starting to look like in Week 15, 4 out of the next 5 matchups after his bye are really good, so might be somebody else to think about stashing there. And that's Geno Smith. And that's going to round out the quarterbacks. Those last 3, like I said, are stashes, not really pickups for this week if you can help it. If you can hang on to them, they might be dropped. If you got a spot and you got bye week troubles coming up, definitely something to keep an eye on there. Now we're going to jump into running backs. Really slim pickings at running backs, guys. I had 4 guys on this list before Khalil Herbert got traded. Now I got 5. And that was just a smear miracle right there. But slim pickings in the free agency for running backs, guys. It just we'll have to keep an eye on a lot of this. But as I sit here and I'm looking, I'm going to add Khalil Herbert right now because everything happened so late. And I don't think he takes over Chase Brown. Don't get me wrong, but man, it's hard to not pick him up and put him on your bench just in case, because you just never know. Yep. Sorry, Blake Corum, you're gone. Picked up Khalil Herbert, stashing him on the bench. So we're just going to rock with that for now. And moving back on to running backs. Number 1 ad for me has got to be Jaylen Warren this week. Owned in 54.9% of leagues. Warren's back. He looked good their game right before the bye. Him and Russell Wilson, hooked up a couple passes. And Russell Wilson's passing ability really opens up the running. And you really seen it their last game right before their bye week. You really seen their running game kind of open up a little bit. And they've got some pretty solid matchups coming up. Like this week, they got Washington. Now, they did sign, they traded for Marshawn Lattimore. If you're a Saints fan, you're following that. He went to Washington, which, hey, some of us LSU fans, Jaden Daniels being there, hey, we're kind of pulling for Washington a little bit. So, Marshawn Lattimore goes to Washington. But then they got Baltimore, tough run defense. Cleveland, tough run defense. Cincinnati, Cleveland, Philadelphia, Baltimore. Not a great schedule for Jaylen Warren coming up for running. But what that does, that leads to them passing the ball more. And who's the primary pass catcher in the backfield for Pittsburgh? That will be Jaylen Warren. So if they're having to throw the ball more, you're going to probably see less of Najee Harris and definitely more of Jaylen Warren, which is why I'm advocating to pick him up now. And honestly, if he's available in several of my leagues, I'm trying to stash him just to see what happens. But I do like him a lot. His efficiency and run average metrics are pretty much right where they've been when we thought he was going to break out last year. So owned in about 54% of leagues. Jaylen Warren's my number 1. Number 2 has got to be Ray Davis, who continues to just make big plays and bust them for Buffalo, even though he's only getting very limited usage. But Ray Davis has just been extremely, if you get him the ball 10 times, he's probably busting one of them. And it's just kind of crazy, Let's see. I'm going to pull up and see what his usage rate was last week. 14% snap count, guys. 4 carries for 20 yards. All right. 2 catches on 2 targets for 70 and a touchdown. Okay. The dude got 6 touches and busted 1 for a touchdown. All right. Last week, 6 carries, 29 yards, no targets. The week before, 5 carries, 41 yards and a touchdown. All right. The week before, he got that big workload, just hammered it out. But every week, it seems like he kind of does something. Whenever he's seen his workload increase, there's always that explosive play for Ray Davis. He, to me, is the most valuable handcuff in fantasy right now, because if James Cook goes down, to me, Ray Davis looks like a top 5 running back because he catches the ball well. He runs well after the catch. There ain't much that Ray Davis doesn't do well right now in that Buffalo offense. And if Cook goes down, I think Ray Davis turns into a workhorse. There's some other guys there, but whenever Davis got 20 carries and 3 targets in that last game, you couldn't tell anybody else was there. And he completely, if they weren't already tied to Cook so much, he could have maybe I'm really surprised they don't give him more usage after that. But either way, he's my number 2. He's somebody I'm wanting to stash in pretty much every league I can get my hands on him in. And if you're a James Cook owner, he's got to be number 1 priority if he's sitting around out there. I'd be dropping a wide receiver I might not play for him, even if they got potential. Because if Cook goes down, Davis is the man. And if he does and you ain't got the high priority, then you're probably not getting him. Number 3 is going to be Jonathan Brooks. Owned in 58.6% of leagues. I mean, honestly, we're just waiting to see when he comes back, what happens. But he's so talented. Offense, went back to Bryce Young at quarterback, which is a little disappointing, but it is what it is. Maybe if he continues to not look good, Carolina pushes for Dalton to get back in there, which would be very beneficial. But Carolina's also started trading their players. They traded Deontay Johnson out, one of the wide receivers. They also traded Jonathan Mingo to the Dallas Cowboys, which could or could not be relevant in the future. Not as of right now, probably not. But either way, that opens up more targets for Xavier Legette, who we're going to talk about in a little bit, and also opens up more targets for Coker, who I think they've actually been really impressed with, which also probably helped him let go of Mingo a little bit. But anyway, Jonathan Brooks, keep an eye on him second half. Owned in 58% of leagues. If he's out there, he's super talented. If he gets an opportunity, he could definitely help you down the stretch, especially in bye weeks. So that's number 3. Number 4 is going to be Tajay Spears. The only reason he's 4 is because he's still battling this hamstring injury. And as of kind of writing this out, this episode, and recording it, I'm pulling it up. No new update. He got ruled out last week with that hamstring injury. He did get limited practice in Wednesday, did not practice Thursday or Friday, so I'm guessing he probably still a little sore. So ended up not practicing very much last week. Just keep an eye on it this week. It could go either way. Either way, Tennessee has been just really leaning on the run. Last week, Tony Pollard, ton of work last week. Let's see, where's he at? There he is right there. Yeah, last week, Tony Pollard, 28 carries for 128 yards, 3 catches for 26. 28 carries. That's just crazy volume, guys. All right. So if Tajay Spears can and does make it back, I mean, he comes right back into that 15-touch role. And with his explosiveness in this offense, the offensive line's a lot better. Definitely pretty decent schedule coming up. They got Minnesota, who's not great to run on, but then Houston, Washington, Jacksonville, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Jacksonville, Houston. All of those are very, very easy to run on teams. Not some of them are middle of the pack, but most of them are good matchups. Either way, not anybody you're thinking about sitting somebody against. So keep an eye on Tajay Spears if he's available out there going down the stretch. And then last but not least, who I threw on here late, Khalil Herbert. Zach Moss goes down. They trade for Khalil Herbert, who everybody thought that it might be the rookie Travion Williams, because he was kind of next man up. He was RB3 for them. But they go and trade for Khalil Herbert, and we've all seen what Khalil Herbert can do when he gets opportunity and what he did in Chicago. I can't imagine what he can do with a real offensive line and a real offensive coordinator. I mean, those are just play ones because Lord knows, look what they're doing to their offense right now with all those playmakers. They can't even score more than 9 points in a game. But Khalil Herbert getting traded to the Cincinnati, a great offense. I mean, he's going to see more goal line work than he's seen in probably the rest of this year that he's seen the last 3 years in Chicago, Pete's sake. But either way, coming up, he's got Baltimore this week, Thursday night. Probably didn't play since he just got traded there. Then he's got Chargers, kind of a tough matchup. Then he's got a bye. Okay, so the next 3 weeks, probably not using him unless he really gets, put into that role there. But then you got Pittsburgh, Dallas, Tennessee, Cleveland, Denver, Pittsburgh. Some tough matchups, but Dallas, Tennessee, those 2 matchups right there are and even Cleveland, as they traded off one of their defensive linemen. Those 3 matchups right there could end up being very beneficial depending on which way they go. Pittsburgh's all in. Denver, their defense looks good. But either way, this could be very good for Khalil Herbert. Chase Brown is a great running back, but we've seen them want to give him the ball more in passing situations than running situations. Last week, 27 carries for 120 yards, 5 catches for 37 yards. I mean, you could at least see 10 to 15 of those carries go to Khalil Herbert, and then the rest of it go to Chase Brown. But either way, going to be a great opportunity for Khalil Herbert. I like him a lot going forward in the Cincinnati offense. I think it'll be great. And not to mention, he's pretty decent at pass blocking as well, which I guarantee you Cincinnati was thinking about with Joe Burrow. So love Khalil Herbert there. Last but not least, go see if he's just left dangling out there somewhere on your waiver wire. And then that's going to wrap up the running backs, and we're going to jump right on into the wide receivers. And there's a bunch of options this week, guys, but Juwan Jennings is numero uno for sure. And he's probably number one overall of all the players on this list, just for the sheer fact of what we've seen him do when Brandon Ayuk's out, when Debo's banged up. He has been extremely productive in this offense. I mean, he's probably the wide receiver 1B to Debo's wide receiver 1A if you consider Debo a wide receiver, which, I mean, he technically is, but, he does so much more than that. But I really could see him, Juwan, being a solid wide receiver 2 for you second half of the season, especially with all the injuries at wide receiver so far. If he's out there, go pick him up. Now, CMC coming back could take some pressure off and some work away, but it also could open up some passing lanes and open up down the field a little bit for Juwan Jennings with the threat of CMC back in this backfield. So you like to see that. I like Juwan Jennings. He's number 1 for me going forward. Number 2 is going to be Jalen Tolbert. I told you earlier, now it's going to be rough sledding for him. Cooper Rush is going to be his quarterback, but CeeDee Lamb goes down for a week-to-week injury with that AC joint. And really, there ain't much spark left in this offense. You got Rico Dowdle and you got Jalen Tolbert and Ferguson. So I think Tolbert steps into this wide receiver 1 role for Dallas. Ready or not, he has looked pretty solid and even better than CD at certain times this year, which kind of makes me think, I wonder if just CD has been battling some injuries all season. They've just been avoiding it. But they did trade for Jonathan Mingo, who's a big, fast, athletic wide receiver, but it's going to take him some time to acclimate to the Dallas offense. But we also, Mingo didn't exactly take the world over in Carolina like a lot of people thought he was going to do. So he may be more of a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 type talent than what he was drafted like coming out of college. So, but Jalen Tolbert owned in 22% fantasy leagues. With CeeDee Lamb kind of being down and out, I think he's number 1 because he's going to get a majority of the pass volume in this offense, him and Ferguson. So I like him at number 2. Number 3's got to be Cedric Tillman. Honestly, he could be number 1 if he wasn't on bye this week. But that might help you out because if he's still sitting out there and people see that he's not playing this week, they're like, no, pick him up. Juwan Jennings is probably number 1. Cedric Tillman's got to be number 2 as far as priority. But the only thing Tolbert is over him is because Tolbert's playing this week. So if you need somebody to play, Tolbert's probably my next bet. But if you don't, Tillman all day, every day. I mean, dude looks like a locked-in wide receiver 2 rest of season with wide receiver 1 upside. I mean, we've seen him catching touchdowns like nobody's business. Jameis is confident throwing it to him constantly. He's owned in 47% of fantasy leagues. I mean, he could be a league winner for you down the stretch. I'll be real, because the way his big play production and Jameis's just throw it and hope they come down with it attitude, I guess moxie that he has and just the confidence in his wide receiver, dude, this could be big down the stretch for some folks that are playing him. So highly recommend picking up Cedric Tillman, stashing him on the bench during his bye week this week, and rolling him out there every week after that. Number 4 is going to be Xavier Legette. Well, Jonathan Mingo got traded, like we said, and so did Deontay Johnson. That's just going to open up more opportunity for Xavier Legette, who was seeing a fair amount. I think he's seen about 6 targets the last 2 games. Not extremely efficient in those targets. I think he's only been catching 4 for 40 or 30, but he's got a touchdown the last 2 games. And, man, if you haven't seen that horse celebration that he does every time he scores a touchdown, it's pretty entertaining. So go out there and check it out. He said he did it in honor of his horse, Dollar Bill. So just a little drop there from what I heard whenever I was watching the game this past weekend. But Xavier Legette, number 4, going to get more opportunity. I'd like it a lot more if Dalton was quarterback and not Young. But Young did seem to find him several times during the game this past week, and they looked to seem to have a connection. And Xavier Legette moved well after the catch. So, like him a lot going forward. Then number 5 is going to be Ricky Pearsall. Still trying to get in on this San Francisco offense. Owned in 22% of fantasy leagues. He's coming off a bye. Hopefully, Pearsall's more involved and more acclimated to this offense, like we're hoping to see. Losing Brandon Ayuk, that ACL tear opens up opportunity for him. You still got Jennings, you still got Debo, you got CMC coming back, but y'all, Pearsall was their number 1 pick this past year. Like, San Francisco typically does not take athletes as their number 1 pick. They take quarterbacks, they take linemen, they take defense, they take offensive, defensive linemen. But they took Pearsall as their wide receiver. And like, I'm not saying he's going to take Jennings yet because they love Jennings. They gave him a good contract to stay there because they love what he does in the pass blocking and everything. But I just think that they're going to give Pearsall the ball a little bit more than people are thinking. Like, I think he's going to get about 10 opportunities a game. And with his burst, with his explosiveness and athleticism, like, that could be all he needs to be a flex play every week. And then not to mention with Debo's, health history and pretty much being an injury risk every week. Same thing with CMC with this Achilles tendonitis right now. Ricky Pearsall could have a big role if any of those guys go down, and Jennings. So I love him right here, picking him up, stash him, see what happens this week. With them coming off a bye, he's had a lot more opportunity to work with the offense, get more acclimated, learn them to maybe install some specific plays for Ricky Pearsall. And Shanahan's a genius. We've seen him do it with all these other players, and Pearsall is just like I said, everybody, like I said before in previous pods, they are calling him Debo 2.0 because that's the type of player he is. And Shanahan knows what to do with a player like that. And I don't want to be sitting there waiting for him to blow up and trying to get him off waivers when you can get him ahead of the game right now and stash him on your bench. So, and if you need him to play, I honestly think you could do worse than putting him in at your flex. And I might have to do it in one league, and I might not be mad about it. So that's Ricky Pearsall, number 5. Number 6 is going to be Ray McCloud. And this is only if Drake London misses time. You heard me talk about his hip pointer injury earlier in the pod. Ray McCloud has been very productive with his opportunities. Now, he hasn't had a lot because London, Pitts, and Mooney have pretty much, and Bijan have gobbled up all the opportunity. But Ray McCloud is very explosive with his opportunities. Super fast, quick, shifty wide receiver. If London's out, that's going to be more work for Ray. And honestly, I think he could be fairly productive as a flex play this week. And hopefully London doesn't miss too much time. Like I said, it doesn't sound like he will. But I'm just saying, if you're in a bind looking for somebody deep, Ray McCloud might be somebody, if London misses this week, somebody you could plug in at flex. So just a thought there. And then that's going to wrap up our wide receivers. Going to jump right on into our tight ends. And number 1's got to be Mike Gesicki for Cincinnati. I mean, I'm chasing points here, but honestly, the last couple of weeks, Joe Burrow has been going to Mike Gesicki a lot, really a lot more than I expected him to. Like, I mean, dude, like the last couple of weeks, he had 8 targets last week, 6 targets this past week, 8 targets 2 weeks ago, 6 targets this past week, 2 touchdowns this past week, five catches for 100 yards. I mean, honestly, it's starting to look like when T. Higgins is out, Mike Gesicki's the replacement, not Andre Yoshivas, Mike Gesicki. And it's looking very likely that T. Higgins is going to be out again this week as they play on Thursday night, and he has not practiced yet. So that's why he's my number 1 right now. If you need help at tight end, Mike Gesicki, play him this week against Baltimore, who is very vulnerable in the pass, might I add, as they're 25th against the tight end so far this season. But Mike Gesicki's number 1 for me for Cincinnati. Burrow's got a connection with him already. He looks for him in the red zone, big plays. Just like Mike Gesicki right now going forward until T. Higgins comes back. Then I think it kind of shifts back to those 3-4 targets a game. But right now with T. Higgins out, Mike Gesicki seems to be the wide receiver pass catcher 2 in this offense. Number 2 is going to be Hunter Henry for me. Drake May's back. I told you when Drake May was, in there, Hunter Henry pretty much is his number one wide receiver on this offense. Now, this offense isn't that great, don't get me wrong, but Drake May's back, Hunter Henry's back, and Henry seems to be his primary read in the offense, and he looks good doing it. So somebody that has seen a lot of targets the last several games. So since Drake May started in that game against Jacksonville, 9 targets, 6 targets against the Jets, and that was Jacoby Brissett for most of that because that's when May got knocked out. And then May comes back for this past game against Tennessee, 8 targets. And both the games where May was a complete starter, 8 catches for 92 against Jacksonville. Last week, 7 catches for 56 against Tennessee. Dude, you're taking that all day, every day for a tight end in this league. He's got Chicago, who could be a good matchup because the wide receivers are tough to get the ball to against Chicago. Then the Rams, Miami, Indianapolis, Arizona, Buffalo, Chargers. You don't really like Buffalo and Chargers there at the end of the season, but the rest of those games sound pretty good to me going forward. So Hunter Henry's number 2, owned in 41% leagues. Then number 3 is going to be Taysom Hill. Owned in 26% leagues. Like I said, we just lost Olave, probably for an extended period. Hopefully not, but possibly. The special teams coach is now, I think it's Dan Rizzi or something like that, is now the head coach in New Orleans, or interim head coach with Dennis Allen being cut. And we know how Taysom Hill has been a special teams star ever since he has come into the league. So you got to think that coach is going to be like, we got to get Hill the ball more. He's one of our best playmakers. This is just trying to get ahead of the curve. I mean, who knows what we're going to see in this offense? I mean, Kubiak's done pretty good. I don't know how much Allen was influencing the offense so far. Might not have been much, but either way, without Olave, you got to think they're looking to Hill more. He's healthy. I mean, he gets the ball in the red zone enough, so you got a good chance at a touchdown every week, regardless of what his other volume is, especially with Olave out. So I like Hill a lot at tight end, and definitely somebody that's flex worthy at least for the next couple weeks, or at least until Olave comes back. Number 4 is going to be Jonnu Smith, and honestly, if he was on just about any other team, he'd probably be higher on this list. But, man, I'm still skeptical. He's on in 12% of leagues. Jonnu's in Miami. And, we just have never really seen Miami use a tight end in their offense whenever they have Tyreek Hill and Waddle and Tua. Like, they just never used a tight end in this offense hardly at all. But Jonnu has been very productive the last several weeks. I mean, you go back, now this is when Tua was out, but the week before their bye, he had 8 targets. Then they had their bye. Tua's been out. 7 targets against Indianapolis, 6 targets, 4 catches for 20 in that one, but 7 for 96 and a touchdown against the Colts. Then last week, 6 targets, 5 catches for 46 yards, and that's with Tua in there. 6 targets. I mean, with Jonnu's pass catching and run after the catch ability, they're past their bye. He looks like somebody that could be kind of productive. I'd temper my expectations because Miami just has not been known for using their tight end much. But, Jonnu Smith, with the volume he's been getting, if you're in a bind with bye weeks, I think you can do worse, especially with Tua. He's a good, accurate offensive, quarterback, and he doesn't run a lot, obviously, so you're not going to have to worry about him not checking the ball down at Jonnu Smith whenever he gets, a pass rush. So maybe that's a plus for him. So definitely somebody to look at, just another option there. And then I've got one deep league option, that somebody that I've seen play this past weekend against the Saints. And honestly, I was like, who is that guy? He looks great. And it's Jatavion Sanders. He's a tight end for the Carolina Panthers. I'm guessing rookie. Hang on, and I will tell you, because I didn't look this up before, but considering the fact that I've never heard of him, probably so. Yes, rookie out of Texas, Jatavion Sanders. But anyway, last week, 5 targets, 4 catches for 85 yards. But man, he looked very explosive and athletic after the catch last week. Had several runs after the catch that were just like, man, look at that guy go. He was impressive. And so Jatavion Sanders for the Carolina Panthers might be somebody to look for. Bryce Young, look for him. If Bryce Young's going to continue to be the quarterback in this offense, Mingo's gone, Deontay Johnson's gone. And Young looked for him 5 times during this game, and he really made some big plays. I would not be shocked if they don't start looking to get him the ball a little bit more. I mean, he is a mismatch by far. Like, I mean, you can just tell when you watch him, he's that hybrid wide receiver, tight end, but he's huge. Like, he is a big man. And like, I think, let me see if I had it just pulled up right here. Yeah, 6'4", 250. So kind of a very slim, not slim, but, athletic build for a tight end. And, man, he made some really impressive plays, jumped over a guy and ran over a couple guys and looked good. So might be somebody to watch going down the stretch. If Bryce Young's going to be the quarterback and he's going to throw it to Shavion Sanders some, could be some magic happen there in Carolina with that. So just another one to keep an eye on. And that's going to close out our tight ends. And jumping on into our defenses that streamed this week, really kind of a tough week. Couple defenses that I really like. One in Detroit, who made some upgrades, owned in 54.9% league. Like I said, they picked up pass rusher from Cleveland. They're playing at Houston this week, who has not been the great offensive juggernaut that you thought. They've lost a lot of their wide receiver pieces. Houston has not been moving the ball quite as well. The best way they can do is run the ball. Well, defenses, Detroit's best defensive strength is stopping the run. So I feel like this is probably a good game for Detroit's defense to hold them. I don't know about a lot of turnovers because Stroud doesn't really turn the ball over a lot, which is great. But it could be kind of a, tough sledding for Houston against Detroit. So I like their defense this week a lot. And I'm kind of curious to see if they can get some pressure on Stroud and get some sacks. So like Detroit. I like Detroit's defense going forward, honestly. Especially with their offense being as efficient and productive as it's been. Number 2 is going to be Philadelphia's defense, 53.6% leagues owned, going up against Dallas. I mean, Dak's out. CeeDee's probably out. Like, Dallas is reeling. Like, they got Cooper Rush, Jalen Tolbert's their wide receiver 1. They trade for Jonathan Mingo, which does them nothing probably this week. And Philadelphia looks like they're hitting their stride. They lost A.J. Brown, but they still got plenty of options at wide receiver. And they're going to be in Dallas. Dude, I think Philadelphia is looking to go into Dallas and embarrass them personally. But that's just me. So I like Philadelphia at Dallas. Then I like Chicago versus New England at home. Honestly, Chicago's defense is just studly. If they had a decent offensive court, what it reminds me a lot of is New Orleans defense. In New Orleans, like last year or the year before, when right after Peyton left, our defense was a stud, and then our offense couldn't move the ball to save their life because we got no offensive coordinator, we got no offensive-minded head coach. Like, that is Chicago right now. And they're pretty much Saints like 2 years ago or a year ago. And now they do have a lot more weapons on offense than we do, but the fact that they can't get any points out of those, they can't move the ball or anything, I don't know. Either way, Chicago's defense owned in 43% of leagues, going up against May in Chicago. Now, May looks good, and he's still running the ball, but he's still turning the ball over a lot. And Chicago's defense is nothing to be like, if you turn the ball over, they're going to take advantage of it, and they're going to create turnovers. So I think that happens a lot. I think May could be a little productive with his passing ability and rushing ability, but I think he turns the ball over a fair amount. And I think Chicago's defense does wreak havoc on that New England offense. So that's my third defense to stream this week. And then I got 3 kickers for you right here. Chris Boswell, got to be number 1. I mean, he was the number 1 kicker coming into the last couple weeks in Pittsburgh. He's on 55% of fantasy leagues. He's going to be at Washington this week, but he's coming off his bye. So was the number 1 kicker. He's the number 2 kicker coming off his bye, and he's passed his bye. Like, he's somebody, pick him up, put him in your lineup, and just forget about him because he's been very good this year. They've been kicking the ball a lot, which is great. That's what you want, obviously, out of your kicker. A coach is not afraid to run him out there and let him kick a field goal. So you like Chris Boswell. Number 2 is going to be Joshua Carty for the Los Angeles Rams. He pretty much kicks in a controlled environment. It's not a dome. It's kind of like a dome, but it's essentially just controlled environment there in Los Angeles. But either way, not bad conditions to deal with for Josh Carty. This week he's going to be up against Miami at home. But honestly, with the Rams getting their playmakers back, I think they move the ball a little bit more efficiently and better. And I just think it's going to give Carty more opportunities to kick field goals going forward. And I think that's somebody you want to be a part of, and especially since, they play in a controlled environment like they do. And then last but not least, Blake Groupie for New Orleans. Honestly, owning 10% of fantasy leagues, playing at home against Atlanta, it probably has a lot more to do with this offense just not being very efficient, especially in the red zone, and giving Blake Groupie plenty of opportunities to kick field goals. They've got a couple more home games before their bye, so that means you don't have to worry about him kicking in outside in the weather. And this offense is just struggling in the red zone and giving him more opportunities. That's pretty much what it boils down to, and he kicks in a dome. And he's got a good leg, and he's pretty accurate. So we like all those options. So Blake Groupie for New Orleans at number 3. And that's going to close out our waiver wire edition for Week 10. We appreciate y'all joining us. Please, I hope some of these help you out, as we're getting close to the fantasy playoff push down the stretch. Please like, subscribe, download, share, give us some comments and feedbacks on the pod. Let us know what you want to hear more of, what you don't want to hear more of. Just, let us know what you want to hear. And we appreciate everybody listening. Y'all keep chasing that trophy.
This ain't how it's supposed to be. It should be just you